What do you get when you combine a world-class EMS physician and medical director
I speak pretty good English for a guy from Detroit.
with an EMS veteran and all-around nice guy?
Well, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Oh, that's so good. Oh, my God.
Well, you get the EMS show. Taking it to the people, here's your host, Dr. Ritu Sani and Mike Vercast.
Well, hey. Well, everybody, it's sort of just Ritu, not just Ritu, but in terms of the hosts, Mikey V is here. He's here. He's lurking. He may pop in with a comment here and there, but feeling a little under the weather and didn't kind of put his shiny chrome dome on the screen. So, but I want to let's just jump right in. I want to welcome our guests, Randy and Jason Sklar. Go Blue, baby.
What's up, Blue? Great to see
second
you too.
I'm doing this. Yes,
That's right. Although I think last time you were on our old show called The Second Shift.
That is correct.
Oh, yes, right.
We've rebranded since then. And if you can look in the corner, you can see our new logo that we call Bezos and Jesus.
I love it. You guys look good. That's good. That's good cartoon representation as far as I'm concerned.
There you go. So for I don't know, those of you who don't know Randy and Jason, Randy and Jason are two of the funniest set of twins I've ever met. But
that's low bar, Ritu. That's the low bar.
Just I don't know, man. So much work. I mean, I first learned of you guys with your original show on ESPN, View from the Cheap Seats, which I watched on, or it was on the Ocho, I think.
ESPN
Classic. And it was just the cheap seats. On Classic, yeah.
Oh, it was cheap seats then. Okay. And then I got your podcast now is View from the Cheap Seats.
Correct.
And then Dumb People Town with Dan Van Kirk, who I got a chance to hang with a little bit when he came through Portland.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Amazing, funny guy. And then you guys have been on so much good, like classic television, right? So you've been on Better Call Saul, correct? You were,
yes.
I think the funniest show on television right now is What We Do in the Shadows.
Absolutely. Yes.
And you guys were great. Although Jay, I think you got killed in 15 seconds, right?
Spoiler alert, I get knocked off very quickly. Right, man.
So
Jay, you know what? It's so funny, Ritu, the audition for it. First of all, it was written.
Oh, Randy. Randy, you're cutting in and out.
Randy, you're kind of.
So I'll just tell the story as Randy's figuring out his thing. So this audition came up in a really cool way. When we read it, we were like, was this the way they wrote it? And just sort of, it seemed to really fit into the pocket of something we could do, which is play these sort of super upbeat Christian rock versions of the Property Brothers. And it's so funny. And we did it. And we're like, if Christian rock became two people, that's what these guys would be. And we just started doing it. What was really neat was Randy's daughter, who is an actor and wants to be a director. And she actually just got into the University of Michigan.
So she'll be going next year. She actually filmed our. We did it. And she was like, to like change this. And she gave us some notes to take notes from your daughter.
She gave us great notes. Yeah,
they're great notes. And so we did it, and we sent it in, and then we didn't hear for like a month. We get this. I can't believe this is so perfect. And we were so happy, but we had only got a section of it, and so we thought we're going to turn him into a vampire. So this is just we were reading the audition.
Hey, Rand,
you're still breaking
choppy.
up.
I would maybe jump back into this show, log out, log in. But yeah, so we read that it was a little choppy, but I'll explain it. So we read the audition and saw that I get kind of killed right away. And because it's a show about vampires, we almost thought, oh, Jay, you're kind of the lucky one because you're gonna get to come back and be a vampire later in the show. We didn't know how it was going to turn out, but it was such a funny joke to have this be like a TV show. And then the fact that they, you're right, the show has such a mood and a feel, and it's like dark lighting, and obviously because it's vampires, everything has to take place at night. But
Right.
then they shot our episode like an HGTV house flipping show. It had a different feel to it. Felt like, it felt like a really unique and special episode. That was really cool to be a part of, because everyone's like, go ahead, Ren. We can't hear you. Oh, bummer. No, can't hear you at all. So like, I think what was cool was that, we found this audition and we thought, okay, we have to get this. If this was written for us, thank you.
It felt very written for you guys.
Right. And then, of course, the vibe on that show is because they want it to feel real. They obviously want you to do the lines, but if there's room and moments for you to sort of live within the characters that are created and improvise within that, they say go, go, go. And all the cast, I mean, Matt Berry and all those guys, just, their energy is just so good. I say Matt, but really all of them. Their energy is so good and their improv skills are so good that once you start riffing, they'll go with you. Hey, Ren.
Hey, can you hear me now or no?
Perfect.
Better.
Great. Okay, great. All right, superb. So yeah, what Jay said, amazing, super fun. And there was, I don't want to give it away, but there's a secret in there as to who we actually are. And knowing that throughout the whole time made whatever we were doing and the stuff we were improvising just that much more fun, understanding where these characters were ultimately going to go. And they all got it. What a great group of people. I mean, the first night, this was the coolest thing. So the first night we're shooting overnight, all night, because, we got to shoot outside. They want this, you don't want to shoot at like 5 o'clock versus 7 and then be shooting at 9 and 10. It just looks different. Like nothing looks the same. So they start at like midnight and we shoot all the way until like 5 in the morning before it like starts to get light. And we're like, it's freezing. It's Canada. It's Toronto. It's freezing. It's November. And we go into this little Winnebago where all the cast is just kind of sitting and hang out while they set the shot with the team 2 and whatnot, which was the best thing ever for us, because here we were, we had just come to the set that we just landed in Canada that day. And we get an opportunity to just hang out and riff with these guys, and they get a chance to see how funny we are. And so then we got on the set and it was like, they trusted us just by us hanging out for a couple of hours while they set everything up. It was kind of perfect.
And all of them were funny. Kayvon was so funny. Like every single person had their own. Harvey was funny. Everyone had their own
talented
energy.
Yeah.
So talented. And then we actually even got to sit in our trailer with the writers.
Oh, wow.
And talk to the writers about the show. And we got to sort of, in a very real way, say this show is one of our favorite shows on TV. And we were sort of asking them, why do they think this show is a success? And Paul Sims, the head writers and the writers were like, because our only job on this show is to be funny.
Yeah.
We are not trying to, make some grand statement about humanity, although they kind of do.
They kind of are.
They kind of are, but their first goal and their number one vibe within this show is to make something that's funny. And when the root vibe of a show is to be funny, there aren't a lot of shows like that, and great shows are on TV. Like I love Ted Lasso. I think it's a brilliant, funny, wonderful show. I think it has multiple goals going on at once, and comedy is one of them. I think if you look at What We Do in the Shadows, it's pure comedy, and then some other things spring out of it.
It feels to me, it feels to me like that's the comics comedy.
Yeah.
That's a great call.
Show is a show, especially the people involved in it, right? The actors, the writers, the producers, that somebody like you guys who are in the business, who understand how hard it is to be funny in a planned way, can really appreciate that what they're doing. I think more so than just a guy like me who's watching it, but it feels like a meta comedy in sort of that respect.
It's funny for regular folk, but like for comics, they love it so much. Like when we went to the Comedy Store, which is usually where we work in LA, which I love that club so much. It's the opportunity any night to see Mark Maron, Bill Burr, Neil Brennan, Ron Funches, like you name it, Eliza Schlesinger, like all the great people, Sebastian. You just see like all these people going up. We told people that we got it, and people are asking us what's going on, and to a person they were like, oh my god, that's my favorite show. And this is the comics.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it is a comic love show, and I must apologize. I am recording within an aviary. Sorry.
Yeah. Hey,
I'm outside of my house.
Beautiful.
This is what the life of a
gorgeous.
Comic.
It's gorgeous.
My house is small, and there's nowhere for me to go where it's quiet in my house because I still have kids running around.
It's peaceful. This is like Jay, you're like a sound machine. I'm sure you're putting many of these wonderful people who have probably had to work all night, you're putting them to sleep.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you guys taking the time. We had initially going to do this to kick off EMS week, but traffic or travel got in the way.
Yep.
And so we're extending EMS week by a couple of weeks to do this.
Yeah.
Love it.
And appreciate you guys coming on, and I know that you are supportive of kind of like our guys and gals, our group folks that do EMS work.
All the way.
100%. I mean, EMS saved our mom's life. I mean, our mom had a stroke at home overnight. When it was, she miraculously hit the panic button on the alarm, and the police came and EMS units came and immediately assessed the situation. We don't live in St. Louis, so they took our mother's life in their hands and really were able to, treated her like she was their mother and got her into a place where she's now a functioning human being right now because of their quick reaction. And like,
I mean, our cousin is an emergency room doctor, and he kind of travels around. So he'll be somewhere for 8 weeks, and then he'll be off in like a remote area of the United States for another 8 weeks. And then he'll come back and do like a month in Hawaii. And then he'll be like, why aren't I doing 8 weeks in Hawaii? But our cousin Gordon is like, so he's told us like incredible stories of heroism and then just the simple things that they do that are just so important. And, it's amazing. I mean, we're so grateful for everyone and all that you guys do. So thank you.
Appreciate that. And again, I think we're happy to have you. We talked a little bit, Randy, at least we texted a little bit. I think it was Randy that I was texting with about after Damar Hamlin.
I was going to say that too. Like the fact that I could just text you, I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And I don't know what's going on. And like my whole family is crying and like, we don't know what's happening. I'm like, I need to contact somebody to just ask them what's happening. And I reached out to you, and thank you for getting right back to me and explaining everything. And every single, I can go back and read like what you had written me in our DM section of Twitter. Every single thing you predicted happened on the positive side for that kid.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think you guys, I think you guys sort of represent kind of a good cross between sports and culture and comedy. And then when stuff like that happens, it sort of brings it all medical and all that stuff.
I even referenced you, Jay. Remember? So Jay and I do sports on NPR locally here in Southern California. There's a great show called Press Play, and it's kind of like LA centric, SoCal centric stuff, but with an outward look towards the world. So big stories happen, and that stuff can take, center stage, but they also want to know how it affects Southern California. Great show with a great host, Madeline Brand. And I remember they wanted to hear from us what was going on. And I'm like, I need more information about this. And so I got in touch with you, and I even quoted you.
Yes, you did.
We name checked you and just thanked you for being able to get us all of that information. And you made us look good because, again, everything that you predicted, like if they can get to this guy in such and such a time, it's how quickly they got to him, how quickly they treated him. It all was about like the first half hour of like them getting him up and going again. It was It was pretty prophetic stuff. So I didn't say pathetic. I said
Prophetic.
Well, we did a podcast a couple of weeks later with my friend Ron Roth, who's the medical director for the city of Pittsburgh, and he does the Steelers. So he actually talked to us about how they prepare for that every year. They drill it. One of the things that they drill is player with a cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
And
did anything change after the DeMar Hamlin incident, or were they like, "Oh, this is what
the protocol
really
worked"?
Right, it worked, or hey, we need to be better at X, Y, and Z. Did anything change?
So it was very interesting talking to Ron. The next week, anytime somebody stumbled, the entire crowd would just get quiet.
Yeah.
Like it was like if a guy even limped a little bit, there was like, this is gonna happen again.
Yeah.
So they'll do a pretty thorough AAR. I know the medical director for the city of Cincinnati, Jason McMullen, is a very good friend of mine, and he was there also.
Yeah.
And they an after action review. Thanks
I
Mike.
love that Ritu's just like, the AAR. I'm like, yeah,
the
AAR. Simple AAR protocol, Jay.
I'm part of AARP soon. That's how old I am.
Well, I already am, so there you go.
Right.
But they I think they drilled it, and it worked exactly the way
Amazing.
they were planning on it. I think some of the lessons learned are trust the training staff.
Yes.
Because the training staff were like the ones who were immediately like, oh my gosh, no, we need to get everything even much more quickly than the paramedics on scene.
Wow.
Which just why I was so fucking pissed 2 weeks later when the guy pushed the Lions trainer. I don't know.
Unbelievable. I was so mad about that.
I was so mad. It's like
unreal. Like unreal.
Yeah, dude, take the temperature in the room right now. These guys.
I'm like, I'd much rather you push the other coach.
That'd be serious. Like, how like they sometimes reunite soldiers who are back from Iraq with their kids who are facing a different direction, and the father comes running in from the outfield, and then they don't
be like a security guard tackling that person.
Yes,
before he gets.
It's like a guy who's on the field in like not because he's not supposed to be there, and they just the right fielder gives him a shoulder block. You're like, hey, come on.
That's exactly right. So, but I mean, those kind of, I mean, we're pretty EMS. We're like pretty invisible until you want us there.
Yeah.
Right. And when we talk to like our like elected people and stuff, it's just like they don't want to hear about us until they want to call 911 themselves, and then they want you there in like 3 seconds. And so it's just, I mean, the fact that all worked so well was just a testament to the preparation that they did, and the fact that the medicine works if you do it correctly, and so on.
So that's the correct side of it. And you mentioned our podcast, Dumb People Town, where we look at the dumbest stories that happen in a period of time recently, like news stories. And there have been several where people call 911 to like get their son off his phone. You're like, that's not what it's there for.
Or like, call 911 because someone took the last rib at a barbecue. You're like, hey, come on. Can we not use these people for this?
I'm glad you're not being violent, but don't jam up the lines. Someone said we don't even know. Yeah, Mike, we don't even know, but we don't
even know. I'm sure there have been, you guys could probably do an entire podcast.
So there's that. And then at the beginning of every year, we always do a live podcast, usually at San Francisco Sketch Fest.
Which you guys are probably the point of entry for this. Pun intended. Right?
Pun intended. We do, these are the things that were pulled out of people in the last year. So we go orifice to orifice. We
start at the head and we move south.
Yes.
Eyes, nose, mouth.
And the stories of I slipped and the shampoo bottle is now up in my stomach. Yeah. You're like, you didn't slip. Let's stop. We've seen it all. I mean, I can imagine every year.
I actually sat down on 11 action figures. 11?
11? You accidentally? Okay.
So my story on that was, oh, my boyfriend's out there. He doesn't know this happened. I'm like, okay.
Yes, and he's very
Yeah.
mad that his iPhone charger is gone. You're like, can we please?
So, yep, that's a pretty common common complaint. Even people call 911 for that stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
Crazy.
I'm sure they do.
Madness.
So I did have some things that I wanted to kind of hit on, if you guys don't mind.
Sure, let's do it.
And I'll start. Jay and I talked briefly. Jay, you guys, when you guys came to Portland, I've been to see you guys a bunch of times when you guys come to Portland.
Yeah.
Got a chance to watch a Michigan basketball game with you guys, which is where we met and became friends.
Yeah,
we're still friends. That's amazing.
Even though we lost.
Yeah.
But you had a story that you wanted to bring up about when you came in through Portland.
So we did a bit when we were in Portland about the tent cities, which I'm sure you are probably with EMS dealing with the people in that community in that world a lot. So part of what Randy and I wrote a bit because we went and visited the tent city. It was during the Occupy movement. So our thought was like, hey, look, the Occupy Portland movement, Occupy anything was like a one-night stand that turned into like a 4-month relationship. Like it was a good idea to disrupt and create some, attention, awareness, but then, and their goals were right, but then they probably should have separated not because it's not worthy for people to band together, and probably some people got a lot out of the tent city situation. But the problem was when you have a group of anarchists coming together and they stay in one place for a very long time, like it or not, they become a society, and then
they start organizing.
So
they can't help but organizing. They need stuff. So our bit was, you walk around and you hear people saying like, hey, we need to get a group of people to walk around and make sure that people aren't doing bad stuff to other people. And someone else is like, you mean like the cops? Like, no cops. No cops. And then they're like, well, Dave's got the, veggie burritos and Sarah's got the herbal tea. And what if they want to barter with each other, but he doesn't have any tea, has the burritos? Can he write down on a piece of paper that he's going to give it to them? You mean like money? No money.
We're not talking about money. But we do need to put all those slips of paper in a centralized place where people can put them in.
You mean like a bank? You mean
no
banks.
No banks.
Okay, everybody's talking at once. Just Sarah, can you talk and represent the views of those people standing over there? You mean like a government?
No.
Our bit is really about the hypocrisy, the unintentional hypocrisy that these anarchists were forced to exist in simply because of their situation. This is not an indictment of the entire left side of our country. This is not a get out of here, you libtard XYZ. That's not our attitude. Our attitude was like, we are pointing out that anarchy is when it's someone's goal to be anarchist, but they suddenly find themselves in a society because of circumstance. That is a very funny situation for a comedian to expose. Hypocrisy. So, but we posted that video on our Instagram page a month or a few weeks or a week ago, and it's taken off. And Randy and I were like, why is this taking off? And we're suddenly getting thousands of new followers on Instagram. We're looking at who's popping in and following us, and everyone has like an American flag as their like symbol. And you're like, okay. So
do they know you're Jewish? Does that
I mean, you're like, you're gonna figure out eventually who we are.
Yes, politics are not there.
No, we're not Newsmax, but like it is kind of interesting. But we're not going to back off from the take. I mean, I think the take is funny. And I think this is the problem sometimes. This is the problem with the politics, the way America has divided itself right now. The problem is that people are like, once you're part of whatever team you're part of, the other screw side is like, screw this person. And we're like, hey, we want to just sort of stand near the middle. We know where we stand. I would say we're probably left leaning, but like, we want to be in a position where we can point out hypocrisy on all sides. That's
right. Like if you can't make fun of yourself or your side, you've lost it.
Yeah.
You've lost it.
You're in a
That's the-
cult. You're in a cult if
cult.
you can't see your own
You
side.
gotta put. We make fun of our kids. We make fun of our wives. We make fun of our mom. I mean, it's like, and we
We
love
make fun
them
of
all.
ourselves. We make fun of
love them all.
ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean that that really leads into like kind of, I had a couple topics. Like one was your process, right? So I've been super impressed. We were talking about Sklars and Stripes and how I got interviewed when you guys came through Portland, and
Amazing.
just like you guys spent a half a day or a day in Portland, and you come up with like 20 minutes of material, which, you know, people talk about a tight five, right? So
Yeah.
you come up with 50. I think there was 15 minutes of material. You know, Mike and I, we do our thing. I think as like as a doctor and a paramedic, I actually think we're pretty funny.
Yeah, you guys
you
are.
Yes, you
And
are.
we do stuff. We used to do live events. We used to do we did a couple of award ceremony type things, and we tried to write funny.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Hard.
Can't
Hard.
do it.
Hard.
We're the off the cuff stuff we can do, but so that was part of one of my questions was like, after seeing you do that, like almost in person, and I know you guys are also doing a show coming up where you provide notes to famous stand-up comics. Holy crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I think in terms of like from an EMS perspective, talking about leadership and doing your presentations and providing, you know, because that's what is your process like? And then you guys too, your timing is a big component of what you do. So all of that stuff also.
Yeah, I mean, in EMS, you talk about like those minutes count, those seconds count. Like two people working on one person have to be in concert with each other. Like I bet if you put it in a sports term, they're like, it's like the ultimate pick and roll. It's like, I know you're going to roll this way, which means I'm going to go this way. And then we don't waste a second. I know you're going to get this equipment, and you just develop that shorthand with each other. So
or a quarterback to a wide receiver who knows exactly when to throw the ball before the wide receiver's already in their turn, and they turn and the ball's waiting there for them. It's that kind of, you want to build that rapport.
So the way we write material is that usually one of us comes up, an observation, something that happened to me or happened to Jay, we'll bring it to each other as like, this happened and this is really weird, and I think we should explore this thing right here. Like Jay and I were driving down, we were driving down Sunset Boulevard, and we saw a huge billboard that said, "We have the #1 streaming show in the world," bragging. Underneath that, Dahmer. We're like, mean, maybe you do, but like, this feels like a victory lap that you don't need to take. Okay. Because, you know, it's literally like Nike putting up a billboard that said, "We have the cheapest soccer balls in the world." And then underneath that, Malaysian kid. Like, don't brag about something.
You don't need to brag.
Shouldn't be bragging about. And
so Randy and I see that and we say, oh, that's weird. And that is definitely scratching. It's bumping us in a way that we're like, there's something that we can mine out of this. So, you know, we start talking about it. What would be a funny direction to go with this? How could we talk? So we started improvising, like if someone was coming into a big marketing meeting at Netflix, trying to whoop up the troops, like, guys, we're killing it. We're killing it. And it's
obviously not like Jeffrey.
Jeffrey actually really killed real people. Can we not?
He killed it. He straight up killed. So like we just started improvising these jokes and stuff, and we kind of got like 40% there. And then we're like, all right, let's take this to the stage and see where the laugh thing in Los Angeles and see where the laugh points are. So then we find where the laugh points are, and then we're like, okay, how can we sharpen this, tighten this, add a few more jokes here, start to do it more? If it really starts to get laughs, it really goes into the rotation of like that 15-minute set that we're doing around town in LA. Then we take it on the road. And if we're on the road, let's say in Portland for a whole weekend, we'll do 5 shows. You get a chance to run that bit through the mill 5 times. If it's good audiences, which Portland always are, you know, they expand, the bits expand, something happens in your brain.
Like, I would love to figure this out if there is a medical explanation for this. And my guess is that it's something akin to a runner's high or a release of serotonin in your brain when you're a comedian on stage and you get a huge laugh from the crowd and there's time between you being, speaking again. All of the synapses feel like they're firing in your brain.
Yep.
And I do think that you sort of reach this like higher plane of creative output. And that's where a lot of times we'll be inspired to say something for the first time in the context of a bit on stage. And if that gets a laugh, then we'll
Like, I would love it if we could map the brain, have it like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like you see the kind of like in a CAT scan, like if you could do comedy from a CAT scan,
CAT
if you
scan
could
comedy.
if you CAT scan comedy, if you could
There
make,
you go.
if you could
Hey,
make,
from the cat skills to the CAT scans, it's the
CAT scan comedians,
There
that
you
like
go.
we're in two separate machines, just but like the idea that like it would be cool to map that out, because we talked to other comics and there is that moment on stage where it is going well and you do come to the next thing and you do break through to another plane and you figure out other things that are funny about what you're saying, and it's amazing, and it's like creatively it can't be it's a really cool experience.
But I will say this. Anytime we come up with an idea and it makes us laugh initially, we take note of that and we're like,
Mhm.
this is funny. We can, like today, what was the sketch we were coming up with as we were walking with our friend Hannah Einbinder, who's on Hacks, who's just
Oh my God, she's so great.
She's the
So
best. We were just
Love
walking.
that show.
Oh no. Okay, so this is the sketch we were coming up with, which is really funny. And I don't know if we're gonna turn this into like a stand-up bit or anything, but like we were walking and this woman it looked like she was talking on her phone, but I couldn't see any Bluetooth on
So
her.
it felt like she was talking to her dog,
but
us.
about us. So like she was like, we would like said something and she was like looked down at her dog or on
They
her
do not. They should not be.
They should not be together. They should not
No,
be
they
hanging out
shouldn't.
together.
No, they should not.
And we're like, that's a funny character, the person who makes really rude observations about people, but talking at people through their dog.
And that was making us laugh. So the more we started saying like, "Ooh, she should not be wearing that outfit." No, she shouldn't.
No, she shouldn't.
No, she shouldn't. She is way too heavy.
Does
to wear
that
something
match? Do you think that match?
No, it doesn't. No, it does not. She is not. And so the person who's allowed to be rude because they're telling it all to their dog instead of to the person.
What? I'm not saying anything to you. I'm just
I'm
talking
talking to my dog.
to my dog.
I'm talking to my dog.
So you guys get an idea and you kind of just riff
We start
together.
going.
Yeah, collaborate. And so you mentioned our show that we do. It's called Tag It, that we're doing at the Comedy Store we're doing one on June 14th. We're going to do one on July 19th. We're going to do one at Largo, the famous Largo, on August 1st. And basically our friends go up, we host the show. Our friends go up and do their set of comedy. And while they're performing his or her set of comedy, Jay and I are off to the side of the stage in our notes section of our phone, listening and writing pitches for like, okay, you were going, I love this bit. I love what you were doing. So we come on stage afterwards and we say, all right, give it up for the Ian Edwards. He's amazing. All right, Ian, I loved what you were saying about this so much. I'm going to pitch you a joke for this. And then we pitch jokes. And if they riff with us and we come to an even better place, the three of us together, it's like a beautiful backstage moment that you bring on stage. If they just are like, I love that, I'm using it, we're like, great. And the audience kind of gets to see this process happen. And it is, like we were talking about before, very collaborative. Because a lot of people see, comedians as lone wolves.
Mhm.
Is it wolves or wolves, Jay?
It's wolves. Wolves
It's
is a
wolves.
group.
I think it's lone wolves.
It's wolves is a group of Jewish people. Like the wolves are coming over. Put on your nice slacks.
Okay,
Like
fine.
you're-
So
I think if you had two Michael McKeans from Laverne and Shirley,
yeah.
you would have the lone wolves. You remember that shirt that he had?
Oh
He had
yes.
there you go. That's a
Wolves.
callback.
Lone wolf. That is such a callback. So yeah,
Nice.
wolves.
Woofs.
So
Wolves.
wolves. So people think of them as like lone wolves or wolves, and you're like, well, there's a lot of collaboration that goes on, and there is this sort of karmic bank that comedians without are very altruistically drop little things into, where you see your friend and you're like, hey, I love this story you're telling. is that real? Did that really happen to you? Tell me more about it. And like,
I'll give you one. I'll give you one right now, and I don't want to give it too much away. But our friend Jeff Tice, who's a great comedian, he made unbelievable posters for shows. He's a really brilliant Denver comic, and he has this great bit about still being at the stage where he does, like, he'll do a show anywhere. Like, he did a show in his friend's backyard, and then he got heckled by someone who wasn't even at the show, by the neighbor over the fence.
Over the fence heckled.
Neighbor over the fence was like, "You suck," and he was like, So he said something. He made some joke about getting him back over the fence, but I called him up and we started talking about it. And I'm like, when you think about it, like, heckling is such a cowardly move. Like, and it's also like way better to heckle someone in at the comedy club, because then you just get in your car and drive home. Like, Jeff knows where this guy lives. Like, you just pissed off a comic. Like, obviously, I'm going to call your HOA and tell them that your hedges are too tall.
That's
you
right.
just made a $70 heckle mistake. Yeah,
right.
oh, I suck. You know what else sucks? Getting 18 catalogs. You're about to get that every single month because
I know your address.
So we started riffing about that, and it was so fun. And you know, I loved it's almost like, and I'm sure you see this sometimes when a medical problem comes up and there's problem solving that needs to happen, right? Like, for someone who might watch you guys as you problem solve as doctors, they might say, how in the world did you think of that solution? There's no way I could have come up with it. And you yourself might be like, I just sort of stared at the problem, and the solution started to emerge to me out of, I've seen this situation before, I've seen some of the things, or this solution just sort of presented itself to me. And I think that's right. With comedy, it's almost like those old magic eye photos where you stare at just a bunch of gibberish, and all of a sudden a dolphin comes forward and you're like, yes, this is what we need to do here. And I think with our comedic creative minds, Randy and I sometimes, and maybe more quickly than other people because we do it with each other a lot, we are able to spot some comedy opportunities even in other people's material. And that's why this Tag It show is really fun. So much so that I think Randy and I are even starting to toy around with the idea of, when we come to a city to do a weekend of shows, maybe Thursday night show is us doing a set of comedy, but instead of just an opening act, a feature act, and a headliner on Thursday night, maybe we'll have like 7 local comics come up, and we'll tag all their jokes, and we'll do a set at the end that's ours. So it's a different type of show. We won't do our full set, so people who want to come see us can maybe see us twice in the weekend.
There you go.
But it's also like a different type of experience. I think people are looking for new experiences in comedy.
Agreed.
So one of the things that we do, this is fabulous. So one of the things that we do with our crews is we talk about training, how you fight and all that stuff. But one of the things when we put our crews through the paces of practicing a cardiac arrest or practicing a stroke, we really have them focus on communication, right? So we present them with a problem, and sometimes we give them a problem that's not particularly cognitively hard, but organizationally difficult. But other times we'll provide them a cognitive kind of dilemma with the exact hope that exactly what you described would happen, which is that together, because when we have a critically ill patient, we will typically have 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 providers on at the same, they're attending to the patient at the same time.
Right.
And when I'm in the emergency department, it's a team. We really want them to focus as part of that process on openness of communication.
Yeah.
If you are the paramedic in charge, we have a position called PIC. When we, your job is to sort of survey the situation, but to make sure that you're riffing, if you will, with everybody so that you can pull out everybody's ideas, because the solution is probably in the room. I might not have it, but it's probably in the room. And this idea of creating this relationship where we're able to have a give and take of conversation is how you end up with this sort of funniest joke or best outcome for the patient.
So when people say communication, most people are like, yeah, you got to communicate with people. You got to talk to them. You got to talk. That's half of it. The other half, what you're describing, is listening.
Yes.
The PIC's got to listen to the people who are underneath him or her. Jay and I spent a lot of time listening to each other, even sometimes while we're talking, but like I can sense that he has something he wants to say on stage. And so I back off a little bit, allow him to do it. It's what I think gives us that great sort of back and forth and symbiosis between each other, but it is listening. It's just, it's so important in everything you do. I mean, it's really important in acting. It's really important in acting, especially when, I mean, Jay can tell you probably one of his favorite acting jobs he ever did was Curb Your Enthusiasm. And why?
Yep.
Because there was an inline and an outline, and then
there's no script. There's no script.
So
So you have to listen.
Listen.
Randy and I were in Baltimore. This is crazy. Randy and I were in Baltimore. We were actually in DC doing shows, but we were up in Baltimore doing radio to promote these DC shows at the Arlington Cinema and Draft House. This is many years ago. It was right around the Sopranos finale.
It's like 2 weeks left in the Sopranos, and it was like building towards a finale.
So they had on the actor who played Johnny Sachs, who was like a tremendous actor. Randy and I loved.
So calm, so like his energy like wasn't pushing it. He kind of had a different energy than the other sort of wise guys on that show. I just loved everything he was doing.
So we were like, this guy, and he's talking about his acting process on this radio show that we're going to be on in an hour, listening as we're driving in, and we're like riveted. We're like, I can't wait to hear what this guy's going to say about acting. And he was like, they're like, so what is it like? What is your process in a scene? And he's like, honestly, I just learned the last line of the last word of everyone's line right in front of me. And I'm like, he's talking. And then now I'm talking. And then he's talking. And we're like, wait, what? You
don't listen. How are you this good? And you don't even listen, because truthfully, a scene should be different every time you do it.
Mm-hmm.
It should, even though you're saying the same lines. And when we shoot TV shows and films, people know this or they don't know this. You got to shoot it so many different ways. You got to shoot a big shot that includes everybody. That's called a master shot, just so you can like get geography as to where they're sitting in the corner booth at a restaurant, and that's what it is. And now I understand, because this is, so if a waitress comes in, I see that she's probably gonna, or he's or a waiter, he's probably gonna come in this way. You understand where they are. Then you push into a close up on one guy's face, and then a close up on the woman's face. So you got to get all these angles. Well, they have to shoot it like, 20 times to get the scene at least 5 times each way. So you could get bored and just say it the same way or give a less than performance, but you don't want to give a less than performance, even if it's not your close up. You got to give that other person the best we can give, and it should be different and alive every time. So when this guy's saying
different and alive, that's the thing. That's what you're striving for, and it doesn't always happen. And we filmed.
That's what we and paramedics are striving for. Keep it alive.
There you go.
Everything alive. That's it.
way to bring it around. But I like the idea that you're kind of riffing with your team when you're taking care of a critically ill patient, because you're really, whether you're the paramedic in charge on the field, or I can think of a couple of really pretty gnarly cases in the last week where if we didn't all do stuff together, and like I was going to do one thing and my pharmacist was like, no, we need to do it this way. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're so right. Let's just do that. Just this idea that there's always this give and take, communication and listening to each other. And I'm always impressed that you guys, you don't walk on each other.
No, it's listening, walk with, and try not to go over. And, we do our podcast, Dumb People Town. We usually have another great comedic person along with, you mentioned Dan Van Kirk, who's amazing in his own right. And we've even learned with Dan how to be like, okay, Dan's about to come in here. Let's just step back and let him do his thing. And we often say to the guests who have never done the show before, it's like we all have a steering wheel. Everybody's got the wheel, and anyone can drive at any moment. And then if someone takes the wheel, we sit back and we all just let that person do their thing, and then someone else. So it's a feeling of power and ownership over our little situation. I can only imagine
but it's about trust. I think it's also about trusting the people you're with. So we talk about this all the time. You hear, if you use the University of Michigan as an example, their football team, one of the things they say, the reason why they're having success, and this folds true to any team, comedy team, EMS team, any team. When you trust the other people on your team, then you have the sum of your parts is greater than your individual parts. That's just it. It's true.
Yeah. And I think the way you build that trust is by working together for a long period of time. Like you guys have been together your whole lives, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think so, right?
I think so.
There's a few years when we were like 4, 5, and 6 that we just weren't speaking to each other.
No.
But yeah, no, we have. And that is something you work on over time, and you listen. And even when you fight, you got to listen. It's interesting. We've learned a lot from having kids too, because you have kids, and I just remember like getting into fights with my kids about just stupid crap, like just stupid stuff. And then, and it upsets you in a way that like you get really upset. Sometimes the best thing, it's like you're going to make mistakes and get upset. Sometimes the best thing is to apologize afterwards, because you then teach the kid how to apologize in the future. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you're going to be in a
but then
relationship.
they start doing it. Like, I'll give you an example. The other day, I slept in my daughter's room because the dog we're watching was throwing up, and I wanted to keep the dog in that room so it wouldn't bother her and my wife. And so, whatever, she got mad that I kept the dog in there because it threw up in there, and she was like, I hate you, I'm so mad. This is at like 7 in the morning after I'm dealing with a throwing up dog, and I am so angry that nobody is appreciating me for doing all this stuff, and I'm mad at her for taking that attitude even though she's only 9. And I'm like, that's it, I'm leaving. I'm not, I'm gonna go out and take a walk, I'm gonna do my own thing and cool off. No one's talking to me like this. And I'm like, I am not apologizing to this kid. I was so mad. Hot. Came in hot. Came back home hot. And she walked over to me and stuck her hand out to shake my hand. I went to shake her hand, and then she pulled me in and hugged me, and she said she was sorry. Now, she said it first. And I was like, oh my God.
I'm not, Jay, you were like, I'm not ready to apologize.
No, I pushed her away, and I was like,
you knocked her down.
Knocked her down like she was an EMS at a Lions game. Knock her down.
So I know, for real. I was like blown away, and I'm like, oh my God, now I feel terrible that I wasn't the first person to apologize for the scuffle. But
you feel great because you passed that on,
because now we both are in this thing, and it's like, yeah, you can't. Randy and I can't stay mad at each other for a long period of time. We have too much invested in each other, and it's so counterproductive to our own happiness and career and our team and our, fulfillment and all the things that we have woven into this career that we have and our lives together and our relationship. There's no point in holding a grudge. I feel terrible for people who don't talk to their brother for 25 years or mother or sister. So like that stuff is just, I don't even understand it. But if you're your working team, you have to, like, if you get into an argument with someone, you got to get over it fast.
Especially if time is of the essence. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I think that one of the quotes I'll take out of here is there's no point in holding a grudge.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I mean, nothing is accomplished. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys, I know you guys are a little bit, you did an entire movie about poop jokes. So I know you're a little bit about humor and kind of meta, like understanding humor and its role in society.
Yeah.
And so one of the last topics I wanted to hit on was just kind of humor and its role in stress. And, we in the EMS profession sometimes get dinged for being somewhat inappropriate at times with our humor. The more stressed we get, the more inappropriate the humor gets, quite frankly.
Sure.
But I just wanted to, pick your brains or hear your thoughts on kind of the role of humor in these kind of situations.
So I'll tell you the importance of releasing the stress, letting the air out of whatever is about to burst, which is a great sort of analogy for, when tensions are high, if someone makes a joke, it is like the greatest thing in the world because it cuts through the tension. So I didn't realize, when we had kids, I thought like most of my time would be spent being like, okay, do your chemistry. Go do your math. Did you finish your Mandarin homework? Like, go do it. Like, I don't know why you're waiting to do. That's half the battle. Okay. You want your kids to succeed. You want them to do well. The other half is, what are you doing this weekend? Are you hanging with your friends? Do you have plans? Like, let's get a plan on the books with so-and-so. Like, go out and have fun and relax, because if you don't, you're going to be stressed, and that's going to affect your physical health. Your mental health affects your mental health nowadays. Thank God we're talking about it more. And we talk about it with my kids too. When they're like, I'm too stressed, I'm too this, I'm that. I'm like, okay, how do we release this stress? And we usually do it in our house through humor. Even when we're mad at each other, it's like, yeah, like as tense as it gets. If you can make a joke about yourself, about your
It's hard to
spouse,
stay
about
mad when you're
one of the
laughing. It is really hard to stay mad when you're laughing. That's number one. And number two, our friend who's a doctor in Chicago, our friend Josh Levitsky, he's a wonderful doctor, gastroenterologist, and he said, back when he was in med school, the show Scrubs had come out, and ER was out too, and the other hospital show, and I was like, what's the most realistic show? He's like, Scrubs. And I was like, why? And he's like, because the gallows humor and the way that we dealt with the tension and the stress and the intensity of what we were dealing with was to be funny with each other.
Yep.
And some people
you need that.
They need it to get through and survive and function.
And you want like, if I'm a patient, I want whoever's working on me not to be so hyper focused that they could turn a lump of coal into a diamond with their ass. I want somebody who is, because I know me, I'm at my best when I'm loose and comfortable. I'm at my best when I'm like, okay, I'm relaxed and I'm good. And again, sadly, we've been like through many hospital things with our parents, with our mom. The doctors who were like the surgeons who were just calm through it all, you just could sense and they gave confidence to us. And so I think it is so important. And I think even if something feels inappropriate, if you understand that that is the tool. Now, listen, you can't sexually harass people. Let's start with that. But if someone makes a joke that is maybe not appropriate in that moment, I think for the tense job that you guys do, it's so important. I mean, Jay and I perform at the roast battle in the Comedy Store. We like judge it a lot. And the beauty of that is that show is almost like a release for how tense society is, because people say anything. And the other person who you're making a joke about does not get offended. They laugh and come back to the other person with something even harder. And the audience, there's this sort of unwritten contract that, look, if you're offended by anything that is said in this place, you have a right to just not listen. If you want to get up and walk out, you can. But like the contract is, people are trying things out here. And so allow it to happen. And to hear a room full of laughter is a tremendous stress release, I think.
Yeah, I think that, you're Will Smith just entered the chat. That's right.
Exactly.
That was good, Mike.
Got a great sense of humor.
I think where people, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head on the sort of gallows humor. And I think there's a huge difference between sort of gallows humor and then also like kind of, busting somebody's chops.
Yeah.
Who you have a relationship with, and punching down.
Yes.
Like what I love about your act is I never, ever feel like you're punching down.
No.
You're punching a waterfall now and again, but you're never punching down.
Not punching.
So I that, and I think there's a huge difference. And what I try to talk about with my crews is, don't punch down. Don't this, nothing at the expense of this person.
Right.
But on the other hand, I mean, you gotta have fun. This is a terrible job, and you see terrible things, and it's weird to say you have to have fun, but you get to do things nobody else gets to do. And every once in a while, somebody's walking around because you were there, and that's a pretty powerful feeling.
So if you put it in the context of get your head in the space where you can do your best work, how do you do that? Well, you're prepared. You know about every situation, but then also be loose. Be ready for everything. Don't be uptight. How do you get not uptight? Well, humor can loosen you up a little bit. And so if the way I just presented it, I don't think any workplace would have a problem with that.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
I agree. 100%. So this is great. I'm having so much fun. And I know you guys have probably lives and families to get back to. And
We do.
And,
They're like, what's going on? We're like, we're
yeah. And, you know, I am really, I love that I can call you guys friends. I'm also a very big fan, have been a fan of your work long before we met. And
Thank
thrilled that that we went to the same school. We had our friend Seth on last year talking
Awesome.
about,
So
we had him on to talk about data and how data
Yeah.
drives performance.
Yeah.
And how
Right.
you can translate data driving performance from football to an EMS world.
That's right.
And it was pretty cool. So if you don't have time for this, then that's cool. One of the things we've done with our last two guests that we had on was ask them the James Lipton Inside the Actor Studio questions. Are you
Let's
familiar
do
with
it.
those?
Let's do it.
Let's roll that, and then we'll wrap it up.
Perfect. All right. So are you familiar with the James Lipton Inside the Actor Studio questions?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we can curse. I think I already have a couple times. So,
Right.
Number one, what is your favorite word?
Favorite word, Jay. What is your favorite word?
So we used to do this thing when we were kids with our parents, a word of the day, like a vocab word of the day, an interesting word. And our mom, I'll never forget, one of the words that she had for us was the word salmagundi, which is a vast array,
potpourri, a
a
vast array.
variety of. So I am now doing vocab words with my kids just because it's fun, and I hope one word sticks with them. So that's probably my favorite word, salmagundi.
So I'm going to use what is it? Not a pronoun, but an actual name. What is that? I don't even know.
Proper noun.
I'm like, what? I was an English major. So I love this. There's a town in Italy that I went to last summer that is just so great, and everything about it is wonderful. It's kind of like the name is frivolous, but the town is really sturdy. It's in the little boot heel of Italy, and it's called Gallipoli. That word just makes me happy. I tell my kids, we're going to drive to Gallipoli, and it like seems like a far off, like we're going to fly into the clouds and go to Gallipoli. That word just brings a smile to my face. And I know it's a proper noun, but I'm going to throw that in there.
It's still a word. It's still a word. That counts.
Yeah. Counts.
What is your least favorite word?
Canceled.
Yeah.
I hate that word. I hate the concept of people canceling other people, and I hate it.
Yeah, good choice.
You know, I think hate is a word that I hate, and I'll give him one more, bored. When my kids say I'm bored, so when I hear that word, I'm like, that's lazy and sloppy. If you're bored, you're not doing the work to get yourself to a better place. I'm bored. That's literally the worst thing a kid can say.
Randy and I once waited for a bus in northern Israel for 4 hours, and we turned double plays with a bottle cap and another.
No, it was a detergent cap.
Detergent.
Like a Tide cap. We're with our friend who now is part owner in the Miami Marlins. Ari Ackerman is his name. And like the three of us were together, we were waiting for this bus, and we just literally threw it out there and turned double plays with a bottle cap.
4 hours.
All day. 4 hours. That we weren't bored.
I just think back to my childhood, and we just went outside and just did stuff.
Played. Yeah.
You know, you want to give your kids a hoop and a stick and go.
Go.
You know,
you're not gonna be bored.
Yeah.
You're not gonna be bored.
Okay. What turns you on?
Jay, what turns you on?
I'm gonna say laughter. I think humor and laughter. People who are funny and laughing, that's such a turn on to me.
I'm going to stay in the world of comedy and say the gag. The gag turns me on. Just when someone has a joke or a bit or a thing that they're doing, it gets me. I give so much credit to that. I love it so much. I'm talking about in life. Sometimes there are just life gags that are so much fun.
Like we had a friend, we have a close friend who's a writer who, it was my son's bar mitzvah on March 11th.
Congrats.
And thank you. And for 3 weeks before, every Thursday, he would call me and say he's getting on the plane and he can't wait for the bar mitzvah this weekend. and I'd be like, man, it's not this weekend. It's on March 11th. He's like, I'm at the airport. And like, he texts me, I'm flying in. Where's the party? I'll be there tomorrow. And like his commitment to that bit, even though I knew he knew, and he knew that I knew, was making me laugh so hard. I loved it.
So I went, it was 12:15 the other night after we had people over at our house for a dinner party, friends over, and cleaned everything up, and we were done. And we had another friend who was over. His wife and their kids were out of town, so he was like alone, free. And it was another friend of all of ours, my wife and me and this guy Jonathan. It was her birthday, and it was probably we looked on the map, and it was 16 minutes away, and we're like, we got to go, because if we show up at 12:30, 12:45, and be the last wave of this party, we're going to be like part of the last group of people, and we're just going to inject it with so much fun and whatnot. And there was like there was a car accident, which is not great. And there was like a traffic jam, and we were waiting. We're like, my friend's like, I think we're not going to be able to make it. We made it around. Everybody was fine. Saw the cars, saw the people outside. They were walking around. Thank God. We drive around and we go to this house, and we came in with such force in this party. It was so much fun. And they had a karaoke thing, and I sang with the woman whose birthday it was, and we sang Night Moves by Bob Seger. And there's one moment in the song where he's like, it gets really cut. He's like, and his voice flutters a little bit. He's like, when you don't seem to have as much to lose. So I was like, in the moment where it's really quiet, I was like, Sarah, you gonna let me flutter? You gonna let me flutter? And like all these people are in the room. She's like, go for it, Randy, go for it. And I did it. And it was like this little stupid bit that she and I were doing. We didn't talk about it ahead of time. We did it. And I'm like, I love this so much. It just gets me every time.
Everybody likes a good gag. I'll tell you, when I was a freshman in Mary Markley, we called the same guy's room every day the entire year,
Perfect.
asking for the wrong guy.
Perfect. It's a great bit.
We did it every day. And then, of course, the last day, what did we do? We called and said, hey, this is Tony. Anybody call for me? So
Brilliant.
Great bit.
Brilliant.
All right.
And if that guy had an ounce of humor in him, he'd be like, all right.
He was like, lunch when the guy named Tony used to live in this room or something. What turns you off?
People with no self-awareness, like that really turns me off, because there's no pathway to those people.
You know what turns me off is people who treat service people poorly. Waiter, waitress, valet car, whatever, you name it, who treat them poorly, and like that is a good window into the person. I'm like, okay, if you're treating a service person poorly, I don't think I'm going to like you. That turns me off.
Yeah, no, we can always tell like who's going to fit in the merch department if they treat like during COVID, our housekeepers were heroes. They came to work.
Oh,
and they're
amazing.
Save lives.
They kept us clean. I mean, they were heroes. And if you treat treat those people badly, then you suck. And I don't want anything to do with you. So
agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
What sound or noise do you love? I think, Jay, you kind of already hit on this.
Laughter. I mean, it's the greatest thing in the world. Best sound ever.
I love
a room full of people laughing is even more amazing to me.
I love a great burp. My daughter's friend is like the cutest girl ever. She's like she's like a young Kate Moss. She can burp like a deranged trucker, and every time she does it, it makes me laugh. I'm like, it's just hilarious. I'm like, I can't believe you're making this sound.
That's great. Awesome. Mine was 100,000 of my friends singing Mr. Brightside, but
yes.
Oh, that works too.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. What sound or noise do you hate?
I mean, fingernails on a chalkboard, I really can't deal with. I know that kind of happy.
In the same vein, like, you know how like sometimes when like people have silverware and it like the fork goes across the plate.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, it's one of those things where it happens, and then like a minute later, I'm like, ah. I don't know why the sound travels slower from the plate to my ears, but it's like it doesn't even happen in real time, but I hate it.
Hate it.
What is your favorite curse word?
What is your favorite curse word?
So I loved The Wire, and I loved the dude on The Wire who was like, she.
Just kept
I
going.
love that. That makes me so happy. I love that word. Shit, she, the long shit is great.
And speaking of, when we did Wild Hogs, like I got to say the line when he comes around, my ear was all like mangled up, and Jay's actually winds up on the other side of me, his character, and he's like talking shit about me on the good ear, and I just was like, son of a bitch. The emphasis I put on bitch, I'm like, bitch is a good one.
That was a good one.
Bitch is a good one because bitch can be like so many different things. Bitch is the way you address like people that you love in a jokingly fun way. It's like the beginning of a sentence. Like bitch is like excuse me at times. Like excuse me, what are we doing here? Bitch, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? You're not even talking to anybody in particular. I don't love it when it's calling a woman that, but like every other use of it, I think is like funny.
All right, you got 3 left. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Would like to attempt or wish we could be?
Either one.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd say professional basketball player. I would do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, we look forward to some. So I'm gonna morph mine into if I could be 2 people who weren't me in this world. I don't know if that's a future question, but if I could be 2 people who weren't me,
that'll work.
Because it's really those professions. The 2 people I'd want to be are Elvis Costello and Bjorn Borg. Now I know Bjorn Borg had depression issues and whatnot, but like the idea of being Bjorn Borg in the 1970s, that cool, that good at a sport, that good looking, I'm like, I would love it so much. And Elvis Costello, I love his music so much. I love his writing. I just thought there was like a force and an energy in what he was doing. So
he made himself cool, and he was
musician and professional tennis player. There you go.
I saw Elvis Costello at Hill Auditorium in 1988.
Wow.
Where it was just him and an acoustic guitar.
Amazing.
It was incredible. Incredible.
Rad.
What profession would you not like to do?
Oh.
I mean, we did it. We said no to being lawyers. We both got into law school, and then we just said no to it. And I'm kind of glad that we didn't do it. There are moments of very up and down. Our business is very volatile, and there are moments where I'm like, we should have picked something more stable. But I'm happy that we're not a lawyer. I'm glad.
Yeah, investment banker. I remember there was a woman who we graduated in 1994 from college, and our best friend at the time, the guy who was calling me about my son's bar mitzvah,
we lived with him in New York.
We lived with him in New York, and he had a friend who went to Cornell with him, and we saw her like 6 months after she had started doing this 90-hour-a-week banking job. 23 years old, she was making about $120,000 in '94. That was a lot of money, a lot more than we were making, and we were always like, we wanted to hear what it was like, and she showed up at this party and she had gray hair. And we were like,
oh my
no.
Yeah, that was
no.
She had beautiful black hair and then a
gray streaks, and we're like
23. Oh my goodness.
No, I know. No. How hard it was.
Yeah. If heaven exists, this is the last question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Come hang out with your dad. He's over there. Because
nice.
He was just the greatest. Come on. He's right over there.
Oh.
Or, that would be it.
That would be it. It'd be that, of course. And also, you have 15 minutes and then you're going on. It's Richard Pryor, it's Robin Williams, and then it's you guys. And that's cool. They're really excited to have you. And your dad's going to be there too to watch.
Oh, that's amazing. That is that's amazing answers.
Thanks, man.
So, Great. So I thank you again for taking the time to be with us, and I want to wish everybody a happy EMS week. The other thing I wanted to thank you guys. The last 3 years have been really stressful, and 2020, y'all got me through it every single day. Listening to your daily viral podcast, I listen to it almost every day. There are a couple things that I look back on that time that helped me get through, and you guys were part of it. Kim's Convenience was another big part of it, but you helped me get through that time. So thank you very much.
So we love putting content out there, and I would say to anyone who's new to us through this podcast and what you guys are doing, follow us. We're on Instagram at Sklar Brothers, TikTok if you are under the age of 17. I'm joking. But if you want to follow us at Sklar Brothers, Twitter at Sklar Brothers, and we have a Patreon that we do old episodes of Cheap Seats. So it's patreon.com/Sklar Brothers. And our two podcasts are View from the Cheap Seats Sports Podcast and Dumb People Town. If you like any of what we did tonight and you want to check all that stuff out, we are always interested in getting new people on board with what we do, because Jay and I firmly believe this, which is why we're even doing this podcast, which is why we are so happy that our Michigan community brought us together, is that we do firmly believe that we are better as a group together.
We are better together than we are on our own, and laughter has a healing quality. Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks a bunch. Take care.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, thanks for listening to the EMS show. Let's continue this conversation. What do you say? Check out the official Facebook page and Twitter feed. The EMS show is a Firedog production.